I stand trembling on my parents' snow-covered porch, one hand clutching my small suitcase, the other instinctively moving to shield my unborn child. 4 months pregnant and suddenly homeless in the dead of winter, not exactly how I planned my senior year. The door slams behind me with such force that the brass knocker rattles like chattering teeth. The sound echoes through our quiet suburban neighborhood, where perfect families live in perfect houses with perfectly planned futures. My father's final words ring in my ears, sharper than the January wind. "You made your bed, now lie in it." Snowflakes gather on my shoulders, melting into my thin sweater. I haven't even grabbed my winter coat. It still hangs in the entryway closet, just 3 feet from where I stand, now as unreachable as the moon. I take a shaky breath that clouds in front of my face. How did we get here? Just 2 hours ago, I sat at our polished oak dining table, the same table where we'd shared Sunday dinners and Thanksgiving feasts for 18 years. My hands twisted in my lap as I worked up the courage to speak the words I'd been rehearsing for days. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something." My voice had sounded small, even to me. Dad lowered his newspaper. Mom set down her teacup, the delicate china making a musical clink against its saucer. "I'm pregnant." 2 words, just 2 words, and the temperature in the room plummeted. The silence stretched until Dad's newspaper crumpled in his grip. Then came the explosion. "How could you be so stupid?" He slammed his fist against the table, making the silverware jump. "What will the church think? What will our friends say?" His face flushed crimson as he paced the room, gesturing wildly. 18 years of raising you right, of building our reputation in this community. Her legs closed. I flinched, but kept my eyes on Mom, waiting for her to step in, to buffer his rage as she'd always done. Instead, she stared at her hands, shoulders curved inward. "We raised you better than this, Harper," she whispered, still not meeting my eyes. "It was one mistake," I said. "Tyler and I—" "Tyler Anderson?" Dad barked a laugh. "The quarterback who just left for state on a full scholarship? Don't expect him to throw away his future for your mistake." "I'd calling, but—" "He blocked your number 3 weeks ago," Mom said softly. "His mother told me at Bridge Club. She said he wanted a fresh start at college." The betrayal stung like a slap. 3 weeks? He'd cut me off before I even knew I was pregnant. "I have nowhere to go," I said, my voice breaking. "Please, I can keep going to school. I can get a job after. We can figure this out." Dad stalked to the hallway closet. The sound of hangers scraping the rod filled the silence as he yanked out my small weekend suitcase, the one I'd used for church retreats and sleepovers at friends' houses. "Pack your things," he said flatly. Richard, Mom started but fell silent when he turned his glare on her. "Either she terminates this pregnancy, or she leaves this house. I won't have our family name dragged through the mud." I stood slowly, one hand moving protectively to my stomach. "This is my child," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "This is your grandchild." Something shifted in his eyes then, not softening, but hardening further, as if a door had closed forever. Not in my lifetime. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, movements mechanical as I grabbed some clothes, my school notebooks, the emergency cash I'd saved from my summer job. Family photos on the wall rattled as Dad paced downstairs, his voice booming as he continued his tirade. When I came down, Mom stood at the bottom of the stairs, arms wrapped around herself. "Mom, please." I reached for her hand. "Don't let him do this." Her eyes finally met mine, swimming with tears. For one heartbeat, I thought she might defy him. Then her gaze slid away, shoulders slumping in silent compliance. "I'll pray for you," she whispered. Dad grabbed my suitcase and threw it onto the porch. "Either terminate this pregnancy or leave this house," he repeated, voice cold as the night air that rushed in through the open door. I looked between them, these strangers wearing my parents' faces. My hand moved to my belly again, and in that moment something crystallized within me, a clarity I'd never known before. "This is my child," I said again. "I choose my child." I stepped into the winter night, refusing to look back as the door slammed behind me. Now I stand in the gathering snow, fumbling through my suitcase until my fingers close around a frame. I pull out the family portrait taken last Easter, all of us in our Sunday best, smiling for the camera. My fingers trace the familiar faces now unrecognizable to me. The photo slips from my numb fingers, glass shattering against the frozen ground. A single tear tracks down my cheek as I turn away, leaving the broken pieces where they fell. What would you do if your family abandoned you at your most vulnerable moment? Would you crumble under the weight of rejection, or would you find strength you never knew existed? My journey from this snowy porch will reveal a courage that even I don't yet know I possess. I take one step, then another, into the unknown. I stand shivering on Grandmother Eleanor's porch at midnight, my knuckles hovering inches from her door. The yellow porch light casts a halo around my trembling form as I summon what little courage remains. 3 bus stops and a half-mile walk through unfamiliar streets have left my legs aching and my resolve paper-thin. What if she turns me away too? Before I can knock, the door swings open. Eleanor stands there in her faded flannel robe, gray hair tumbling from its loose bun, eyes widening at the sight of me. "Harper? Good heavens, child." Her arms enfold me before I can speak, and the scent of her lavender soap breaks something loose inside me. I collapse against her shoulder, my suitcase thumping forgotten at my feet. "They threw me out." I manage between sobs. "Dad said," he said. "Shh, now." Her hand smooths my hair, the gesture so achingly maternal that it only makes me cry harder. "Come inside where it's warm. You're frozen through." Eleanor's modest 2-bedroom home feels like a palace after hours in the bitter cold. I clutch a mug of chamomile tea between my palms at her kitchen table while she bustles around, pulling extra blankets from the hall closet, her steady stream of gentle chatter washing over me. "You'll stay here as long as you need," she says, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Your grandfather built this house with his own 2 hands. No one can tell me who belongs under this roof." The weight of the day crashes down, and I sag against her touch. "Dad will be furious with you." A flicker of somethinger, defiance, crosses her weathered face. Richard stopped having a say in my household 25 years ago. Morning light streams through lace curtains, momentarily disorienting me. This isn't my bedroom with its carefully coordinated decor. This room smells of mothballs and old books, the walls lined with faded photographs in mismatched frames. The events of yesterday crash back like a physical blow. My hand moves instinctively to my stomach, to the small, firm roundness there. My phone buzzes on the nightstand, a text from Leah, my best friend since 3rd grade. "Where are you? Your mom told mine you left for a study abroad program." Study abroad? The lie hits like a slap. They're already erasing me. I scroll through my message history with Tyler. Nothing since early December, when his texts became increasingly distant. Then, nothing. Just an abrupt wall of silence I'd attributed to finals and holiday travel. With shaking fingers, I pull up his Instagram profile. Account not found. Facebook. Blocked. Snapchat. No longer friends. 3 weeks, Mom had said. He'd cut me off 3 weeks ago before I even knew about the baby. My bedroom door creaks open, Eleanor appearing with a tray of toast and eggs. Her smile falters when she sees my face. "He knew," I whisper, holding up my phone. "Tyler knew about the baby, didn't he?" Eleanor sets down the tray and perches on the edge of the bed. "Your mother called Tyler's parents the day after you told them." Her hand covers mine. "They agreed it would be best for everyone if he focused on his athletic career." "Everyone except me," I say, my voice hollow. "Everyone except your great-grandchild." While Eleanor naps that afternoon, I use her ancient desktop computer to check my email. A notification appears for her Gmail account, still logged in. I start to close it when a draft email catches my eye. "Richard, I understand your concern, but Harper is my grandchild. I cannot turn her away." My fingers hover over the mouse. I shouldn't. But haven't I been lied to enough? I open the draft. "Richard, I understand your concern, but Harper is my grandchild. I cannot turn her away. Your threat to discontinue helping with my mortgage payments won't change my mind. What you and Diane are doing is unconscionable. That girl needs her family now more than ever. If your reputation at church means more to you than your daughter's well-being, perhaps you should examine what those Sunday sermons have truly taught you." Eleanor. The chair creaks as I lean back, stunned. Dad had tried to stop Eleanor from taking me in, had threatened her financially. I was going to delete that. I startle at Eleanor's voice from the doorway. "I'm sorry," I whisper. "I shouldn't have." "No," she says, crossing to stand beside me. "Maybe you should know exactly what you're dealing with." She reaches past me, closing the draft and opening another folder. "Your mother told the women's prayer group you're doing a semester in Europe. Your father emptied your college fund yesterday morning." Each revelation lands like a physical blow. "How do you know all this?" "Sarah Rogers called. She's still my friend, even if your mother has turned the church against me." Eleanor's mouth sets in a tight line. "Small towns have long memories, Harper. And lousy secret keepers." She opens another browser window, navigating to a banking site. "Your grandfather never trusted your father with money. Too flashy, too focused on appearances." She logs in, showing me an account I've never seen. "He set this aside for you when you were born. Not a fortune, but enough for a fresh start if you want it." The balance of nearly $20,000 blurs through my tears. Why didn't anyone tell me? "Richard convinced me you weren't responsible enough yet." Eleanor's weathered hand covers mine. "I should have known better." The next morning, a knock at the door interrupts our breakfast. A woman with silver-streaked dark hair stands on the porch, holding a basket of muffins. "Sarah," Eleanor says warmly, ushering her inside. "Come meet my granddaughter." Sarah Rogers embraces me without hesitation. "I've been a labor and delivery nurse for 30 years, she says, her kind eyes holding mine. "And I've never met a mother who couldn't use a friend." By afternoon, I've met Margaret, the coffee shop owner who offers me a waitressing job starting Monday. "Baby bump and all," she says with a wink. "Customers tip better when they think they're helping someone." Dr. Reynolds, Eleanor's physician for decades, agrees to provide prenatal care at minimal cost. "Medical community looks after its own," he says, patting Eleanor's hand. "And your grandmother got me through my divorce 20 years ago. Time to return the favor." I stand at Eleanor's window that evening, watching snow begin to fall again. Just like the night my parents cast me out, but everything has changed. An official-looking envelope sits on the counter-certified mail from my father. Inside, legal documents formally severing parental rights, my college fund paperwork with a zero balance. A clear message. I no longer exist to them. Yet here, in this worn little house with its sagging porch and outdated appliances, I've found more genuine family in 24 hours than in 18 years under my parents' roof. You're thinking too hard, Eleanor says, joining me at the window. That baby needs you to rest. How will I manage this? I whisper, reality crashing down. Medical bills, baby expenses, finishing school. One day at a time, she says simply, just like everyone else. Weeks pass. My first waitressing paycheck feels like a victory, even as my swollen feet throb from 8-hour shifts. I enroll in online courses to finish high school while Eleanor transforms her spare room into a nursery with second-hand furniture and carefully washed hand-me-downs. The town whispers. Shoppers stare in the grocery store. My father's influence runs deep here. But something keeps me moving forward. Something grows stronger with each small triumph. Then comes the Saturday I find myself organizing Eleanor's cluttered attic, creating space for my growing collection of baby supplies. Behind a stack of Christmas decorations, I discover a dusty cardboard box labeled Richard College. Inside, dozens of letters in a girl's handwriting, photos of my father young and carefree with a pretty blonde, and documents that make my blood run cold. Hospital bills, a sonogram, adoption papers, never filed, and a tear-stained letter that begins, "Richard, I don't understand why you've disappeared. Our baby deserves better than this." My hands tremble as the truth emerges from yellowed paper. My father had abandoned a pregnant girlfriend in college. My mother had helped him cover it up, just as they now erase me. I sit back on my heels, letters scattered around me, understanding blooming like a dark flower. The hypocrisy isn't a momentary failure. I stand trembling outside Grandmother Eleanor's front door, my swollen belly pushed against the frosty pane as Mrs. Abernathy from First Baptist approaches with a covered dish and a thin smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Harper, dear." She extends the casserole like a peace offering. "We're all so concerned about your situation." Her gaze flicks to my stomach, now impossible to hide at 7 months. Behind her practiced sympathy lurks something else, the same hunger for gossip I've seen in dozens of church members who've suddenly discovered Eleanor's address. "The church ladies are praying for you," she continues, leaning closer. "You know, Sylvia Peterson's daughter faced a similar challenge. They found a lovely Christian couple in Michigan. The baby has a proper family now, and Sylvia's daughter just graduated college." My fingers tighten around the doorknob. "Thank you for the casserole, Mrs. Abernathy. Your father speaks so eloquently at prayer meeting about rebellious children finding their way back to righteousness." She pats my arm. "He says the door remains open when you're ready to make the right choice." The door remains open. The sheer audacity stuns me silent. My father, the man who threw my suitcase onto the snow-covered porch, is recasting himself as the forgiving parent. I swallow back the words burning in my throat and accept the casserole. That night, I find Eleanor at the kitchen table, shredding a letter into confetti. "From Mom?" I ask. "Diane." Eleanor's voice hardens. She never calls my mother daughter anymore. "Offering financial help if you'd come to your senses." She flings the paper shreds into the trash, as if discarding your child could ever be sensible. I place a hand on my belly, feeling a strong kick against my palm. They don't want me. They want the Harper who follows their script. Eleanor covers my hand with her weathered one. "Their loss, my dear. Entirely their loss." 3 days later, Tyler's mother corners me at Margaret's coffee shop during my afternoon shift. You've always been a smart girl, Harper. Mrs. Anderson studies me over her untouched latte, so I can't understand why you try to trap my son like this. I carefully set down my serving tray. Trap him? Tyler has a bright future. She gestures dismissively at my stomach. This would destroy everything he's worked for. The coffee shop falls quiet, customers pretending not to listen. Mrs. Anderson, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Your son blocked my number before I even knew I was pregnant. He made his choice before I could make mine. Because he knew you'd use this to hold him back. My hand instinctively shields my belly. I'm not asking Tyler for anything. Good. She opens her purse, withdraws an envelope. Keep it that way. This should cover any expenses. The implication lands like a slap. I don't touch the envelope. My child isn't an expense to be covered. I straighten my apron. Would you like a refill on that latte? When the contractions start, they come like waves, gentle at first, then crashing against me with breathtaking force. Eleanor drives me to the hospital, her knuckles white against the steering wheel as I breathe through each spasm. You're doing beautifully, Harper, she assures me, but I see the worry in her eyes. The delivery room is bright and cold. I scan the waiting area through the doorway, empty chairs where parents should sit, no anxious father pacing the hallway. Just Eleanor, solid as bedrock, gripping my hand through each contraction. I can't. I gasp as pain tears through me. You can, Eleanor counters. You're stronger than you know. Hours blur into a tunnel of pain and determination. When the doctor finally says, one more push, I summon strength from somewhere deep and primal. My son enters the world with a cry more powerful than his tiny frame suggests. They place him on my chest, this small miracle with a shock of dark hair and fists clenched against the harsh new world. Hello, Mason, I whisper, surprised by my own calm. We'll be just fine, you and me. In that moment, staring into my son's unfocused eyes, I know it's true. My father arrives unannounced the next day. I'm alone, Eleanor, gone briefly for coffee when Richard Collins strides into my hospital room like he's entering a business meeting. He stops short at the sight of Mason sleeping in the clear bassinet. Harper. His voice carries no warmth. Dad. The word feels strange in my mouth, like something that no longer fits. He studies Mason with clinical detachment. He seems healthy. He is. I shift in the bed, wincing at the soreness. Dad reaches into his jacket, produces a business envelope. This should cover adoption expenses. The Millers from church, you remember them? Unable to conceive. Good Christian home. The check lands on my blanket. I stare at it, numb. You're 19, he continues, too young to ruin your life over one mistake. The same words from that winter night. But something has changed not in him, but in me. I pick up the check, fold it precisely, and extend it back to him. Mason isn't a mistake to be fixed. He's my son. My father's face hardens. You're being foolish, Harper. No, Eleanor says from the doorway, 2 coffee cups in her hands. She's being a mother. She sets the coffees down, positions herself between us. You'll leave now, Richard. Your grandson deserves better. Something flickers in my father's eye, surprise, perhaps, at his own mother's steel. He takes the check, slides it back into his pocket. When reality hits, he says at the door, don't come looking for help. After he leaves, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. He'll never accept Mason, will he? Eleanor takes my hand. His loss, not yours. 6 months pass in a blur of midnight feedings and diaper changes, punctuated by unexpected kindnesses. Margaret adjusts my coffee shop schedule around Mason's needs. Sarah from church organizes a rotation of helpers for my first week's home. Dr. Reynolds connects me with a scholarship program for young mothers. My parents remain conspicuously absent, but the hole they left gradually fills with others who choose to be present. I'm refilling coffee at the counter when the bell jingles. My father walks in with 3 business associates, laughing loudly, not recognizing me in my apron with my hair pulled back. He selects a table in my section. I approach with my notepad. "Welcome to Margaret's. What can I get you?" He glances up, momentarily confused, then recognition dawns. His face blanches. "Just coffee," he mutters, suddenly fascinated by the menu. I pour 4 cups with steady hands as he launches into a story about my brother's college achievements. His voice too loud, never once mentioning his daughter or grandson. Strangely, the ache I expected doesn't come. I serve them with professional detachment, realizing with quiet amazement that his opinion no longer matters to me. Later, I sit with Mason on Eleanor's porch swing, watching sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. My son drowses against my chest, his small hand curled around my finger. "Some people never learn that love isn't conditional," Eleanor says, settling beside us with her evening tea. I study Mason's peaceful face, feeling a fierce protectiveness that transcends biology. Then I'll make sure he does. Tomorrow, I start night classes in business and finance. My savings account for Mason grows with each careful deposit. The life I'm building isn't what I planned, but it's becoming something solid and true. When the bell above the coffee shop door jingles the next afternoon, I look up to see a man in an expensive suit enter, his briefcase bearing the logo of the financial investment firm that recently bought my father's failing business. Our eyes meet. I stumble slightly, coffee pot tilting. Hot liquid splashes across his pristine jacket. "I'm so sorry," I gasp, mortified. To my surprise, he laughs a genuine sound in a world of careful facades. "No harm done," he says, extending his hand. "James Callahan." I stare at the coffee stains spreading across James Callahan's crisp white shirt, mortified. The ceramic mug lies shattered at our feet, a casualty of my exhaustion after a double shift. In my experience, men in expensive suits don't react well to clumsy waitresses. "I'm so sorry," I stammer, grabbing a handful of napkins from the dispenser. "Please let me pay for the dry cleaning." But instead of the blistering anger I expect, James throws back his head and laughs a genuine, full-bodied sound that makes several customers turn and smile. "If this is the worst thing that happens to me today, I'm having a pretty good day," he says, accepting the napkins. His eyes crinkle at the corners, lacking the condescension I've grown accustomed to from men his age. "I'm James, by the way." "Harper," I reply, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never does. Instead, James returns the next day, requesting my section, and the day after that, and the following week. Each time he orders black coffee and sometimes a muffin, leaving generous tips that help cover Mason's daycare fees. Our conversations start small weather, coffee preferences but gradually deepen. Unlike most customers who see me as invisible or, worse, an object of pity, James actually listens. When I mention my night courses in business administration, his eyes light up. "Have you considered adding finance courses?" he asks one quiet afternoon. "Understanding market forces and investment strategies could open doors for you." On my wish list, I admit, refilling his cup. But between tuition, daycare, and rent, I'm stretching every dollar until it screams. He nods thoughtfully, then pulls a dog-eared book from his briefcase. "This explained investments better than my first 2 college courses combined. Keep it as long as you need." That book becomes the first of many. Over the next months, our conversations evolve into impromptu business lessons during slow afternoons. Then comes the Tuesday when Margaret calls the staff meeting after closing. Her eyes are red-rimmed as she fiddles with her reading glasses. "I've been putting this off," she says, voice wavering. The building owner's doubling the rent next month. I've tried everything, but at my age, she shakes her head. The coffee shop will close in 30 days. The news hits like a physical blow. This place is more than a Jobits where Sarah brings Mason cookies, where Eleanor meets me for lunch, where I've built a fragile security for my son. That night, after tucking Mason into bed, I spread loan applications across my kitchen table, the figures blurring as exhaustion sets in. Every calculation ends the same way. No bank will take a chance on a 20-year-old single mother with no collateral. 2 weeks later, Margaret bursts through the door, waving a letter. We're saved. Someone bought the building and offered me a 5-year lease at the old rate. I get my answer 3 days later when James walks in with a set of blueprints, spreading them across the counter during my break. What do you think about expanding the kitchen space? He asks casually. The truth crashes over me in waves. It was you, I say flatly. You bought the building. His eyes meet mine steadily. I did. I don't need your charity, I snap, hands trembling as I fold my apron, or your pity. James sets down his coffee cup with deliberate care. This isn't charity, Harper. It's investment in someone who deserves a chance. He taps the blueprints. And frankly, it's selfish. I need a manager with vision, someone who understands both customers and numbers. 6 months later, I stand in the renovated Coffee Shopur coffee shop now watching the morning rush. My suggestions about local sourcing doubled our breakfast traffic. The community board I installed brought in college students who linger through the afternoon. The loyalty program fills our weekends. You've exceeded every projection, James says, handing me the quarterly report. My name is printed on the cover, Harper Collins, manager. For Mason's 2nd birthday, we closed the shop early. Eleanor brings her famous chocolate cake. Sarah and the other waitresses decorate with streamers and balloons. As my son blows out his candles, Eleanor squeezes my hand. Look at what you've built, she whispers, pride shining in her eyes. Later, after the guests leave, James helps me clean up. Mason has fallen asleep on a makeshift bed of coats in the corner booth. He has your determination, James observes, gently brushing cake crumbs from Mason's cheek. The tenderness in his gesture makes my chest tighten. And my stubbornness, I add, finding myself smiling. Our eyes meet over my sleeping child, and something shifts between use a current I've been pretending not to notice for months. That awareness follows us through summer into fall, present in our late-night accounting sessions, in our shared laughter over Mason's growing vocabulary, in the careful way James respects my boundaries while remaining steadfastly present. Then comes the November morning I arrive early to review supply orders. James's office door stands ajar, his desk uncharacteristically cluttered with papers. A familiar letterhead catches my IME father's company logo. I freeze, coffee mug halfway to my lips, as I register the document type, debt acquisition. James's firm now owns my father's debt. When he walks in minutes later, he reads the knowledge on my face immediately. You knew, I whisper. You knew who I was from the beginning. Yes. No excuses, no prevarication. Why didn't you tell me? James sets down his briefcase, his expression open, vulnerable. I never planned to use this against him or as leverage with you. He takes a deep breath. At first, it was just business. Then I met you, and... He shakes his head. I wanted you to trust me for me, not because of any connection to your past. I should feel manipulated, betrayed. Instead, I'm struck by the strange symmetry of it all, how pain and loss circled back to create something unexpected and genuine. Life's curious bridges between broken pieces. I adjust the delicate pearl clip in my hair as laughter drifts through the open window of Eleanor's guest room. Outside, James chases Mason across the lawn, my son's miniature tuxedo already showing grass stains at the knees. His giggles flowed upward, as light as the scattered cherry blossoms carpeting the garden where, in 30 minutes, I'll become Harper Collins Callahan. "You're overthinking again," Eleanor says from the doorway, leaning heavily on her walker. The oxygen tube loops across her face, but her eyes sparkle with the same fierce light that welcomed me on that snowy night 5 years ago. "Just remembering," I admit, smoothing the simple satin of my dress. Eleanor navigates toward me with slow, careful steps. Age and illness have hollowed her physically, but her spirit remains unyielding. "Memories have their place," she says, "but don't let them overshadow today." I help her settle into the cushioned chair by the window. The journey from her hospital bed to this moment has cost her dearly, though she'd never admit it, Doctor. Reynolds had been blunt last week. She's holding on through sheer determination. After the wedding. He didn't need to finish the sentence. 3 coffee shops, Eleanor muses, her gaze following James and Mason outside. My granddaughter, the business mogul. Hardly a mogul. The Harper who appeared on my doorstep would never have believed this possible, she says, clasping my hand. Her skin feels like tissue paper stretched over bone. "You've built something remarkable, dear heart." A knock at the door interrupts us. Sarah, the retired nurse who once showed me how to swaddle newborn Mason, peeks in. 10 minutes, you two. The groom's getting anxious. After Sarah leaves, I kneel before Eleanor's chair. "I wouldn't be here without you." "Nonsense," she says, touching my cheek. "You had this strength all along. You just needed someone to remind you." 3 days after the honeymoon, I'm reviewing quarterly projections in my office when Marjorie buzzes through. "Mrs. Collins, there are 2 people insisting on seeing you. They say they're your parents." The pencil snaps between my fingers. "Should I send them away?" Marjorie asks, hearing my silence. 5 years. 5 years without a card, a call, a single acknowledgement of Mason's existence. "No," I say finally. "Send them in." The door opens, and for a moment, I don't recognize them. My father's shoulders stoop beneath a sport coat that hangs loosely on his frame. My mother's carefully maintained blonde hair now shows strips of gray at the temples. Both wear expressions I've never seen before, uncertainty. "Harper," my father says, his voice lacking its old authority. "You look well." I don't rise from my desk. "What can I do for you?" My mother steps forward, clutching her purse with white knuckles. We've been trying to find the right moment to reach out. 5 years of birthdays and Christmases, I say evenly. You had approximately 20 opportunities. My father clears his throat. "Family is important, Harper. Blood ties can't simply be erased." The familiar self-righteous tone creeps back into his voice, but now I hear the desperation beneath it. His shoes are polished but worn at the heels. My mother's dress is last season's style, the hem uneven where it's been let down. "We've made mistakes," my mother whispers, opening her purse. She places several photographs on my desk, Mason at the park, Mason outside his preschool, Mason in James's arms at our wedding. "We just want to know our grandson." These were taken from a distance, I observe, a cold tingle running down my spine. "You've been watching us." No, my father interjects quickly. "Friends sent them. We've been concerned." I unlock my desk drawer and withdraw a slender manila folder. I've been waiting for this day. I lay out the contents one by one. Mason's birth photo, the hospital room empty except for Eleanor's steadfast presence, the check my father wrote, offering payment for his grandson like a shameful transaction, the formal disownment letter, now framed as my most valuable reminder. "You told me I'd made my bed and must lie in it," I say, my voice steady. "The same applies to you." My father's jaw tightens. "Now see here." "No, you see." I point to each item methodically. Mason's first steps. You weren't there. His first word, Nana, for Eleanor. You weren't there. His 3rd birthday when he had pneumonia and I sat in the emergency room all night. You weren't There. My mother begins to cry, not the delicate tears she once used to manipulate my father, but harsh, ugly sobs that crack her carefully composed facade. I should have stood up for you that night. I've regretted it every day. What do you want? I ask bluntly. The mask slips from my father's face. We've had some financial setbacks. Some investments didn't perform as expected. Richard, my mother hisses. She knows why we're here, Diane, he snaps. James Callahan's firm owns most of our debt. You're our daughter. Surely you could speak to your husband. So I'm your daughter now? The laugh that escapes me holds no humor. Not when I needed parents, but when you need a financial bailout. My father's shoulders sag completely. For the first time in my life, I see him as he truly is, a man whose entire identity rested on appearances, now stripped of his armor. Mason has a father, I say quietly. James chose us both. He saw value where you saw only shame. I gather the photographs and documents, returning them to the folder. Then I reach for a legal pad and begin writing. What are you doing? My father asks. Drawing up terms. I meet his eyes directly. I won't erase your debt, but I won't destroy you either. The young mother's charity needs administrative help, 2 years of consistent service, supervised visits with Mason, contingent on reliable effort, not empty promises. You expect us to work at a charity? My father's face reddens. I expect you to demonstrate the family obligation you claim is so important. I slide the paper across the desk. No financial bailout, but a path forward for both your finances and any relationship you hope to build with us. My mother reaches for the paper first. We'll do it, she whispers. As they leave my office, I don't feel the vindication I once imagined. Instead, I'm struck by an unexpected lightness, the weight of their approval, of their rejection, finally lifting from my shoulders. Their power over me dissolved the moment I recognized I never needed it. James finds me later, staring out my office window. They came, he says simply, not a question. They did. I lean into his embrace. I gave them a chance to earn what they're asking for. That's more than most would offer, he says, kissing my temple. Revenge would be easier, I admit. But Mason deserves to see that strength isn't found in crushing others when you have the power. Outside, the late afternoon sun gilds the coffee shop sign, Eleanor's, named for the woman who showed me that true family is built on choice, not obligation. Some circles close perfectly, others remain broken. The difference lies in whether we have the courage to complete them ourselves. I sit on my porch swing, its gentle rhythm matching the soft fall of January snow. 8 years have passed since that night when another door slammed behind me, when winter meant exile instead of peace. Mason's clear voice carries through the open doorway as he reads to his 3-year-old sister, Emma. And then the little bear found his way home, he says, his finger tracing beneath each word. Emma's delighted giggles warm the air between us. The snow settles on my shoulders, but this time it melts into a thick cardigan instead of a thin sweater. This time I'm not trembling. This time, the golden light spilling from my own windows embraces rather than rejects. I close my eyes, remembering another January evening just 6 months ago. Eleanor's hospice room had smelled of lavender and medicine. Her hand, paper-thin and mapped with blue veins, had gripped mine with surprising strength. I'm scared, I had admitted, the words barely audible over the rhythmic hiss of oxygen. I don't know how to do this without you. Eleanor's eyes, cloudy but still sharp with awareness, had found mine. You've been doing it for years, sweetheart. I just had the privilege of watching. She'd motioned for water, and I'd held the straw to her cracked lips. After sipping, she'd spoken again, each word measured and precious. Remember this, Harper. A kind heart is stronger than cruelty, always. Her last gift to me, wisdom distilled through 94 years of living. I'd held her hand through the night as her breathing slowed, then finally stopped with the dawn. The room had grown very quiet, yet somehow not empty. The porch steps creak now, pulling me back to the present. James appears with 2 steaming mugs, his eyebrows raised in silent question as he offers one to me. The ceramic warms my fingers as I nod toward the empty space beside me. Dad's doing surprisingly well at the shelter, I say, watching snowflakes dissolve in the rising steam. The director called yesterday, said he's actually connecting with the teenage boys. James sips his coffee, considering 8 months of consistent work, that's something. Something, I agree. The word hangs between us, neither dismissive nor overly optimistic, just acknowledgement of small steps. Last week, Mom had baked cookies with Mason, their heads bent together over the rolling pin. I'd watched from the doorway, my heart performing an unfamiliar dance between caution and hope. Mason had looked up, flour dusting his nose, his smile uncomplicated by history he didn't fully understand. "We're using Great-Grandma Eleanor's recipe," he'd announced, and Mom's eyes had glistened briefly before she blinked it away. "The boundaries I've established remain firm supervised visits, no financial entanglements, consistent effort required before trust is extended." But within those boundaries, small moments of healing have begun, measured in cookie dough and tentative conversations. Through the window, I spot the framed certificate hanging in my home office, the Eleanor Parker Foundation's official nonprofit status. Last month, we awarded our first scholarship to a 19-year-old mother named Zoe. Her circumstance is a mirror reflecting my past back to me. The look in her eyes when she realized she wouldn't have to drop out of nursing school had made every sleepless night worth it. I rise from the swing, brushing snow from my lap. Tomorrow, Mason and I will visit Eleanor's grave with fresh daisies, your favorite. He's made a card with careful letters spelling, "I remember your stories." I pause in the doorway, watching James settle on the floor between our children. Emma climbs into his lap as Mason turns the page of their book. On the wall behind them hangs our family portrait: James, me, Mason, Emma smiling in the autumn sunlight. "Mama, did Great-Grandma Eleanor like this story?" Mason asks, looking up with Eleanor's thoughtful eyes in his young face. I cross the room and join them on the floor, completing our circle. "She did," I say, my voice steady with the truth of it. "She loved stories about finding your way home."